Hey YouTube, if you don't want to play Sunshine Cup this week, there is also Ultra League back on. So the Ultra League rankings are up on the board here. It is more or less the same rankings as it has been for the entire season so far. I think there's actually like a couple. I do not remember Aurora's that high, but Registeel, Steelix, Malamar through here, Clefable for Alligator. Like this is a lot of the same old. The only thing that's sort of new is the Shadow Galarian Weezing. So we just had the event where you could get Shadow Galarian Weezing. It is ranked slightly higher than the non-Shadow Galarian Weezing. So if we go put it in to the record here, 16 and 12 and 16, 12 and 1 for the Shadow versus probably something very similar. 15, 13 and 1, right? So very, very similar in its output there. Weezing has always been sort of like one of those kind of sneaky good Pokemon because it even pre Shadow and pre Brutal Swing buff, Brutal Swing was already like a good coverage move, especially in this meta. And having the Fairy Wind, which charged fast, I got actually two buffs this season, Fairy Wind and Brutal Swing. So it was always strong because it was kind of like a very spammy Fairy Wind, Brutal Swing play rough. And for those of you who do not really play Ultra League much, Charmers in Ultra League don't really exist. And the reason that is because in Great League, the Charm does so much damage, right? So you can actually just out-charm stuff in the 1 and 2 shields. In the Ultra League, that's not so much the case. The Ultra League is very, very, very tanky. So by the time you're charming those Pokemon down, they're getting off 4 or 5 charge moves, like 3 to 5 charge moves. So you're not really charming stuff down. So the strongest fairy Pokemon have always been Fairy Wind users. That's why you can see Clefable at number 1, at number 2 is the top fairy with Fairy Wind, and same thing with Weezing. So it was already strong in the past with Fairy Wind, and then Brutal Swing kind of spammy, and then Play Rough is again a good move. This is I won't look at the Shadow because that'll kind of give you a skewed opinion of it, but even in the damage per energy category, 108 damage is pretty decent. And what the thing about Ultra League is, you're not going to one-shot anything in the Ultra League. There's very, very, very few Pokemon that can get one-shot with like nuke moves to even one-shot stuff. So you almost always need two. And Play Rough at 108 damage was one of those moves that like always can two-shot things. Brutal Swing is now a little lower damage on it, but like if you need just like a bait move or you need something to just kind of finish something off after you do like a really hard-hitting Play Rough, it's a nice combo there. So definitely built around it. I think I got at least one team that I took that I'll go over with Weezing. It can be used as a safe swap or as like a leader switch. I think it's pretty like a closer. I think it's got a lot of flexibility. So let's look at some teams. It's been terrible cutting job. I mean, let's just move that over so now it's obviously mixed. Okay, so Clefable, Licky, Swampert. This is a very, very easy balanced team. You can use Swampert. I think Swampert's still good despite the Mudshot nerf, but it was basically a Mud Boy. Clefable, again, the new number 1 ranked fairy, has a hard-hitting Moonblast and a bait of Swift now. Licky is your safe swap. Swampert to cover Clefable's weakness. Clefable has nothing to throw at steals. So stuff like that. I think the hardest for this team would be like a Poison Grass, like a Venusaur, because the Venusaur would resist the Moonblast and would also resist the Hydro Cannons, and just like light up a double weak to Grass Swampert. So that would be the trickiest. That being said, if you looked at the rankings, despite there being fairies and despite there being for alligators, grass type Pokemon are pretty irrelevant in the Ultra League, and that is because the Ultra League has been dominated since Season 1 by Giratina Altered. And when you have Giratina Altered as a ghost dragon that resists grass and poison, there's not a lot of room for it. And then pit on the fact that there was always a ton of flyers in this meta, Talonflame, Pidgeot, Zapdos to a certain extent. There's always flyers. It kind of made grass really tough to run, unless it was Trevenant, and then Trevenant had some play back in the day, but not so much anymore. So I'm not as worried about the sort of grass weakness that you see with this team. I couldn't have planned that better. Setting myself up for what are you talking about? Don't you have a grass Pokemon here? Yes. And that grass Pokemon is Weezing. So Weezing, double poison. Basically, pretty straightforward team. Try to draw out a ground type Pokemon. Skuntank and Tentacruel. You can also use Drapion. I didn't have a Drapion at the time. I have built one up since. All very spammy Pokemon. With the poison jabs actually add up, but you try and just like draw out that ground. Skunk now has Trailblaze, so hits super effective against ground. And then Weezing will punish the ground, and then the other one roams free. So a very straightforward ABB style team. Poisons. I was going to say, these poison moves actually did not get buffed. Poison Jab did not get buffed. Poison Sting got buffed. So if you use Drapion, Poison Sting got buffed. Trailblaze is better this season as well on Skuntank, so that's why it's potentially a good safe swap. So double poison strategy should be pretty strong. Another, I was going to say balanced team, but it's I was going to say ABB, but it's not a true ABB because they're different typings. But you have Drifblim as a flyer, Licky Licky weak as a safe swap, weak to fighting, and then Pangoro in the back. So Pangoro is weak to fighting, but it's also weak to flying and fairy. So it's not like a true ABB. But you try and use like safe swap, Licky Licky, draw out a fighter because it only has one weakness in fighting. Try and draw out a fighter and then beat that fighter with Drifblim, and then Pangoro can roam free in the back. I think Drifblim's on a couple of my teams because I think Drifblim is very strong in this meta. Again, this meta has for the longest time been dominated by Giratina and Cresselia, and being able to hit super effective against both of those, plus having the Icy Wind just for like other flyers that may cause you problems is pretty strong. And Licky Licky is a safe swap. And then Pangoro. Pangoro is one of those Pokemon where one of two things need to happen. You need to land the close combat, or you need to boost on the Night Slash. Karate Chop Night Slash really does not cut it in the Ultra League, not when everything is so tanky. So you really need to try and boost with that Night Slash or land some close combats. It is very spammy to close combat. It's only 5 Karate Chops to a close combat, so you can get there quickly and spam, and with the new 50-second timer, you can maybe get out pretty quick. But again, if you're running this team, that style, you're probably like your last Pokemon's probably Pangoro with shields, which it probably needs. So Pangoro is also a little bit glassy, which is where Licky Licky comes in. Driplim's kind of glassy too, quite honestly. So this was the balanced team that I ran. I started with Drifblim, Drapion, Registeel, and I put Cobalion in. Cobalion was like really underrated. I actually did a overrated, underrated Ultra League Pokemon after the first week, and Cobalion's really even underrated. I think it's so strong in this meta. I already went over Drifblim. I think Drapion is the best. Drapion is the second best safe swap in, I'd say, both Great League and Ultra League. Only behind Feraligatr for both. Just the spamminess of this thing. 4 Poison Stings to an Aqua Tail, 5 to a Crunch. Again, great coverage with like all these moves, right? Because you can cover Ground, you can cover Fairy, you can cover Psychic, you can cover Ghost. You have something for a lot of different Pokemon, which makes it very, very deadly because how spammy it is. And then Cobalion in the back to deal with, again, Astonish and Shadow Ball will, as a ghost type move, will be double resisted by normal. So 1 to beat the normal. And you'll also have problems with Dark because Astonish and Shadow Ball is resisted by Dark. So Cobalion, as the double kick user, will deal with all of those. And then I took a couple, I think these are from Home Slice, and then I have one from Yonkers. So Primeape, Feraligatr, Registeel. Again, a very balanced team, very straightforward team overall. Your Primeape is going to be weak to Fairy and Flying. You have Feraligatr as your safe swap. Note it is running Crunch. You can run Ice Beam. It doesn't need to be Crunch. Crunch gives you a little quicker move. Ice Beam gives you, I think, better coverage for like flyers and stuff like that. And then Registeel in the back to resist that. Resist like Primeape's main weakness. Plus you got some tankiness in the back because otherwise Primeape and Feraligatr are probably more on the glassy side compared to some of the Ultra League Pokemon. And this one I showcased last time too because I just think it's hilarious. It is Feraligatr, Typhlosion, Dragonite, All Shadow. So this is an extremely glassy team, but man, you are going to grab shields with this. Like, first of all, you're going to use all your shields very quickly. But with the Dragonite has always been like one of my favorite Pokemon in Ultra League. You can go back to like I've got a whole Ultra League playlist. If you want to check out how many Dragonite videos I've put out, I have always said that Dragonite is probably one of the top 2 dragons in this meta behind Giratina, and one of the top flying type Pokemon in this meta as well. I think it's so strong. And that super power coverage just really makes it strong. For Alligator. Anti-Flosion, same thing with Incinerate buffed, and only 2 Incinerators to a Thunder Punch, and then 3 to a Nuke of a Blast Burn. So you got Nuke Blast Burn, Nuke Hydro Cannon, really hard hitting Dragon Breath. So it's just like an all glass cannon team. I think it's really fun. And this is one that Yonkis did when he did his top teams like 3 weeks ago. So Gastrodon is the number 3 ranked Pokemon for Ultra League because, okay, that's where we're at with the Mudslap users. So very straightforward ABB double fairy team in the back. So weak to poison in the back. A Ninetales tries out a poison. It is running Powder Snow. And then try to beat that poison with the Mudslap user. And then have your other fairy roam free in the back. You can also safe swap Weezing. I think Weezing is probably a better safe swap in this meta currently than Ninetales. So you can safe swap because you can also run Overheat, right, to give you some steel coverage, which you do not have on Ninetales. So if you run one, you can either run Brutal Swing, Play Rough, or Overheat as your 3 charge moves. So it provides you some options if you want to use that as a safe swap, but then sweep with like Ninetales or Clefable or whatever. But that is it. So thank you for watching. If you're new to this channel, appreciate this. Hit the subscribe button. We put out 2 videos a day. I also talk in the royal we apparently, when it's just me. I will have a couple Ultra League teams because there has been submissions earlier in the season on Ultra League that I have not covered yet. So I will go over those. But for the most part, I think we're going to probably focus on Sunshine Cup because that is where I think the majority of people will play. Just because Ultra League is very, XL and legacy move and legendary heavy, right? You have Feraligatr as a shadow with legacy with Community Day Hydro Cannon. Clefable is XL. Gastrodon is XL. Zygarde, like who has Zygarde? Giratina, which is a legendary Pokemon. Now you have XL Weezing. You have SKL Dusknoir. Aurorus, overrated for number 9, quite honestly. Cobalion, legendary. XL. Florges, yes, you can better chance you have a Florges. Pangoro, Regirock, right? So you have like Regirock is legendary. So you have like 3 non-XL, non-community move Pokemon in the top 20. And then it just continues with the XLs, Talonflame, Drapion, Drifblim, right? So I understand the limitations of this league. Apparently Niantic does not, right? Well, that's not totally true. I got to give some credit to Niantic. If the Ultra League is on or if the Master League is on, they always have a Great League or Little Cup on as the second one. So they actually do understand the limitations of the XL. That being said, I don't think they understand the true limitations of like trying to fix the problem. They're just kind of like, okay, we'll put something else on so people can play, but we're not going to like address the underlying issue of like people not playing Ultra League and Master League, and that is these Pokemon are too difficult to get, and the XLs are too difficult to get in a lot of these Pokemon, and they're not going to address that issue. So if you have them, this has been a very XL dominated lead for a while now. I have run some non-XL Pokemon, so if we just remove the XL Pokemon, obviously for alligators, it's kind of cheating. Like if we remove XL Pokemon and we remove like Feraligatr with the Hydro Cannon, remove Giratina and the legendaries here, Cobalion and stuff like that, I think some of the top Pokemon that you can run, Swampert has always been pretty good. Skelger's kind of jumped up. Walrein has a legacy move, so we'll ignore that. But like Dragonite's somewhere on this list, yeah. You don't need to use Shadow Dragonite, but Shadow Dragonite's at 53. Yep. Pretty tough looking down here. Nothing that I would say you should probably run. Like I used a Muck was used constantly back in the day, but now if you have Drapion as the XL, you use the Drapion. There's no point to use Muck if you have Drapion. Or even like a Tentacruel is better than this as a poison. So yeah, unfortunately, the XLs and non-legendaries are pretty limited. Florges, again, Florges is a good one if you want to Fairy Wind use it that's non-XL. Like, it can be plugged in place, and for the other, obviously Clefable and Galarian Weezing are better, but like, it's a plug in place if you don't have one. So yeah, those are like those would be my ones I suggest, that if you don't have Legacy and you don't have XL, that's who I would recommend using, those Pokemon. But if you have the XLs and Legendaries, test out those teams. And if you don't want to play this league, Sunshine Cup is on, so we will focus on that. Anyways, that is it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.